At 2:13 a.m., John Carter is jolted awake by the sharp vibration of his phone on the nightstand. The apartment around him is silent, the kind of silence that feels too heavy, like it's listening. He reaches for the phone with half-awake annoyance, expecting a wrong number or a spam call. But the screen shows something different. No missed call, no notification bubble, just a single new voicemail with no caller ID. A tight discomfort crawls up his spine. When he presses play, a trembling voice fills the room, the voice of a young girl crying, gasping, trying to breathe through her fear. "Please, please don't tell Mom," she whispers. He's back. The words are soft but sharp, the kind that hit straight into the chest, the kind that don't belong in the middle of the night. John sits upright, suddenly wide awake, watching the shadows of his room creep along the walls. He doesn't know this girl. He has never heard her voice. And yet something about the way she says those words makes his heart drop. It sounds like she knows him, trusts him, depends on him. The voicemail ends with a metallic sound in the background, like a chain dragging or a gate slamming shut. Before cutting off abruptly, John replays it 3 times, each time feeling the same icy tension build in his stomach. The timestamp says 2:13 a.m. Just 7 minutes ago. He tries calling back, but the call fails instantly, as if the number doesn't exist. It makes no sense, but nothing about this night makes sense. When he gets out of bed, the cold from the wooden floor travels up his legs, grounding him in the unsettling reality of the moment. It has been 2 years since he lost his wife, 2 years since silence became the loudest thing in his home. Nights have been predictable, empty, painfully quiet. He's learned to live inside those quiet spaces, learned to avoid anything that shakes the fragile balance he has built. But this voicemail shatters all of it. It isn't just the fear in the girl's voice, it's the strange, aching familiarity. Something in the tone, the urgency, the breaking breath reminds him of Emily, the daughter he lost long before his wife. He presses his palms into his eyes, trying to make sense of the impossible feeling that this unknown child somehow reached out to him. He listens again, this time focusing on the faint sounds behind her voice. A distant hum. A soft echo. Something metallic scraping the ground. And then, right before the message cuts, a whisper so faint he almost misses it. He found the key. "Please hurry." John lowers the phone and stares at the darkness outside his window, a mixture of dread and responsibility tightening inside him. He doesn't know Lily. He doesn't know what key she's talking about, but he knows one thing with absolute certainty: this wasn't a mistake, this wasn't random. A child somewhere is terrified, alone, and asking him for help. And even though he doesn't understand why, he feels that same restless pull he once felt when his own daughter needed him. A pull he can't ignore. And so, in the middle of the night, with a storm growing somewhere in the distance, John makes a decision that will change everything. He is going to find the girl behind the voicemail. John Carter stood frozen in the middle of his living room, the faint echo of the little girl's terrified voice still lingering in his ears. He replayed the voicemail again, this time with headphones, turning the volume all the way up. Every breath, every tremble, every background noise became clearer. There was something rhythmic behind her voice, like a slow, distant clanging. At first, he thought it might be a radiator, but then a cold realization hit him. It sounded like chains. He scribbled notes on paper, girl crying, Mentions mom. Says he's back, mentions a key. Metallic noise. Echo in room, big space, basement. The more he listened, the more he felt as if the room she was trapped in was empty, cold, maybe underground. His chest tightened. Someone had hurt her. Someone had returned. Someone dangerous. He opened his laptop and dragged the audio into a sound editing program. He zoomed in on the waveform, isolating the faint humming in the background. At first, it sounded like an electrical buzz, but when he slowed it down, he heard something else whined. Not natural wind, but the kind that howls through narrow cracks. Like an old abandoned structure. An industrial building. A warehouse. John's hands shook. He had spent years working construction before switching careers. He knew the sound of older buildings better than most. But why would a child be there? And why would she call him? He looked at the timestamp again, 2:06 a.m. If the voicemail was real, truly sent only minutes before he heard it, then something might be happening right now. With trembling fingers, he called a friend in the police department, Officer Ray Gibson. But Ray's tone grew hesitant the moment John mentioned a ghost number and a crying girl. John, I'm not saying you imagined it, but these things happen. Wrong numbers, spam scares, AI-generated voices. It was real, Ray, John snapped. A kid. Scared out of her mind, Ray sighed. Look, send it to me. I'll check, all right. Just don't do anything stupid. But John had already made up his mind. The voicemail echoed again in his head. Please, hey, and he knew, without a doubt, he had to find her. John spent the next morning trying to trace the number manually. The caller ID was blank, meaning the number was hidden, masked, or routed through a burner line. But there was one thing he could track: the voicemail file metadata. Most users never look into it, but John, desperate and stubborn, dug deep. There, buried under technical data, was a single clue, a location tag. Not a complete address, not GPS coordinates, just the name of a cell tower. Red Hill Industrial Zone. His stomach sank. The area had been shut down 6 years earlier after a massive fire. Half the buildings were still standing, but without electricity, without permits, without life. Or so people believed. If someone wanted to hide a child, a basement or warehouse in an abandoned district was the perfect place. He grabbed his jacket, keys, and a flashlight, then froze when he saw a photo on the table. His daughter Emily, smiling, her hair in a messy ponytail, her front tooth missing. She had died at age 9. The same age the girl's voice sounded. His throat tightened painfully. He wasn't just chasing a stranger. Deep down, he was chasing redemption. He reached Red Hill at noon. Empty roads. Broken streetlights. Buildings covered in graffiti. Silence so thick it felt like a weight on his chest. He checked the voicemail again, listening for any sound that might match the environment. And then something. A rattling metal gate in the distance, clanging in the wind exactly like the voicemail. His pulse spiked. He followed the sound, walking past collapsed structures and charred walls until he reached a warehouse with its front sign rusted beyond recognition. The gate clanged loudly, swinging slightly. Inside, darkness. John stepped in. The air smelled of dust and burnt wood. His footsteps echoed. He called out softly, "Hello, is anyone here?" Silence, then a soft thump, then another, coming from below. His flashlight found a metal door on the floor leading to a basement. His shaking fingers touched the handle, and it moved. Something or someone was waiting below. The metal door creaked as John slowly pulled it open. A wave of cold, stale air rushed upward. The basement steps were steep, wooden, and partially broken. He descended carefully, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Hello," he whispered. A faint sob answered from the darkness. His heart lurched. "It's okay, I'm here to help." He reached the bottom and swept the flashlight across the room. It was larger than he expected. Concrete floor, cracked walls, and old machinery scattered everywhere. But in the far corner, curled up behind a stack of empty paint buckets, was a girl, small, thin, shivering, her knees pressed to her chest. Eyes wide with fear, the same voice from the voicemail. Her clothes were dirty, her face smudged with dust, hair tangled. She looked like she hadn't seen daylight in days. John approached slowly. "My name is John," he said softly. "I got your message." She lifted her head. "I didn't call you," she whispered. John froze. "But the voicemail," she shook her head violently. "He sent it. He wants you here." A shiver ran down John's spine. Who wants me here?" Before she could answer, a loud metallic slam echoed above the warehouse gate, then heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate. The girl crawled toward him, grabbing his sleeve. "He's back," she breathed, her voice breaking. "You have to hide. You have to hide now." John grabbed her hand. "Come with me." "No," she cried. "He'll take you too." The footsteps grew louder, the floorboards creaking under enormous weight. Dust rained from the ceiling. John swept the flashlight across the basement and spotted a side room, a maintenance closet. He scooped the girl into his arms and rushed inside, closing the door silently behind them. Darkness wrapped around them. The girl clung to him, trembling uncontrollably. The basement door above creaked open. A man's voice called out deep, gravelly, distorted. "John, you came." John's blood turned to ice. The man knew his name. John held his breath, listening as the heavy footsteps descended the basement stairs. Each step was slow and precise, like someone savoring the moment. The girl clutched his arm so tightly her nails dug into his skin. Her fear felt like a living creature in the cramped closet. The man's boots hit the concrete floor. Then silence. Long, heavy silence. John felt the girl trembling against him. He leaned close. "Do you know him?" he whispered. She nodded. "He brought me here. He said I had to stay until he found the key." "What key?" John asked. Through the darkness, her voice cracked. "The key that opens memories." John didn't understand, not yet, but something about the phrase made his chest tighten painfully. The man's voice filled the basement again. "I know you're here, John. You always follow the cries of a child, even when it destroys you." John's breath stopped. "How do you know my name?" he whispered under his breath. The girl shook her head, crying silently. "He knows everyone," she said. "He watches people. He writes stories about them." Footsteps approached the closet, slow, confident. John grabbed a rusty metal pipe lying near the wall. His hands shook, but he tightened his grip. The steps stopped inches away. The doorknob rattled. John raised the pipe. Silence. Then the man whispered through the door. You couldn't save your daughter, John, but maybe you can save this one. John's soul felt like it was ripped open. He slammed the door open with all his strength, swinging the pipe wildly. But the basement was empty. Only footprints remained, deep, heavy, leading toward the stairs. The girl sobbed into her hands. He does that. He disappears like a shadow. John knelt in front of her. We're leaving. Now, they hurried up the basement stairs and out of the warehouse into blinding daylight. But when John looked back, the warehouse door slowly closed on its own, and a single object slid out beneath it. A small, golden key. He picked it up. I shot through his veins. It was Emily's. His daughter's key. The one buried with her. John felt the world spin as he stared at the key. It was impossible. Emily had carried this key everywhere. It belonged to the diary she had locked on the night she died. He'd placed it gently in her casket, whispering a goodbye no parent should ever speak. And now, here it was cold, real. In his palm. The girl tugged his sleeve. We need to go. He's watching. John's breaths came sharp and fast. What's your name? Lily, she whispered. Lily, how long have you been here? I don't know. I don't remember days. Only the dark. He swallowed hard and pulled her toward the car. I'm taking you to the police. But the moment he said police, she ripped her hand free, shaking violently. No, he said, if I talk to them, he'll take me back. He takes children who are sad. Children who miss someone. That struck John like a lightning bolt. Children who miss someone. Lily. Emily. The voicemail. He crouched in front of her. Lily, do you know where he came from? She closed her eyes, tears falling. He lives in memories. That's what he told me. He comes when someone is hurting, and he chooses them for what? For a story, she breathed. He says every story needs pain. John felt sick. His grief over Emily, the guilt, the sleepless nights, had created a perfect doorway for a monster like this. He stood, gripping the key tightly. We're leaving. Right now, but when he turned around, a figure was standing across the street. Tall, pale, wearing a long black coat, face hidden in shadow. The man spoke without moving his lips. You opened the door, John. Now finish the story, Lily screamed. John grabbed her and ran toward the car, fumbling with the keys, heart pounding. The man didn't chase them. He didn't need to. He simply lifted one hand and pointed at John. Then the voicemail icon appeared on John's phone. Another message. Sent right now. He pressed play. Emily's voice filled the car. Daddy, don't forget me. John's scream echoed off the empty buildings. Lily cried beside him. And the man in black slowly faded into the daylight, as if he had never existed. When John finally drove away from the abandoned industrial zone, the world outside the windshield blurred into streaks of grey and trembling sunlight. His hands were locked so tightly around the steering wheel that his knuckles had gone white, but he didn't loosen his grip. Not even when Lily, exhausted from fear and adrenaline, leaned against the seat and whispered, "Is he still following us?" John didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Every shadow on the side of the road felt long. Every street light flicker felt deliberate. And every time he glanced into the rearview mirror, he expected to see that tall, black-coated figure walking calmly behind them, never rushing, never running. Just existing like a stain on the world. But he wasn't there, not yet. John took Lily to a small community shelter, the safest place he could think of. The volunteers promised to keep her warm, fed and protected. But when they asked for details, her full name, where she lived, who her parents were, she just stared blankly, as though someone had erased half her memories with a trembling hand. One of the staff gently told John, "Trauma does that, she'll remember when she feels safe," but John wasn't sure safety existed anymore. Outside the shelter, he sat alone in his car, staring at the golden key lying on the dashboard. Emily's key. His daughter's key. Every time he looked at it, a chill crawled over his spine. It wasn't just a memory. It wasn't just a relic. It was a message. A message from the thing that wanted him to continue the story. John turned the key over carefully. There were no marks, no scratches, nothing unusual. But when he held it in the light, the metal caught the sun, and for a split second, he thought he saw a reflection behind him. A shadow standing far too close. He jerked around. No one there. Just the quiet whisper of the wind. Still, he could hear Emily's voice echoing in his mind, the one from the voicemail he shouldn't have received. "Daddy, don't forget me." He closed his fist around the key. Whatever that man, whatever that thing was, he wasn't done with John. And John wasn't done fighting. Not now, not ever. Because somewhere between fear and love, between grief and rage, he had found a reason to keep going. Lily needed saving. Emily needed answers. And the story wasn't over. Not until he faced the man in black again. Not until he discovered the truth behind the keys, the memories, the voices. Not until he ended the darkness that had followed him out of that basement. As night fell, John started the engine, the golden key glinting like a tiny shard of hope or a warning. The road ahead stretched into endless darkness. And somewhere far beyond the reach of headlights, a deep voice whispered, "We begin the next chapter soon." Fade out.